Hey, welcome back to Monsters of Curiosity. I'm Jenny Evans. I am joined by the fabulous Susan Evans and the diabolical Paul Conrarty. Um, okay, today's question, I'm really excited both to talk about as well as to get people's opinions and feedback, because I think there's going to be a lot of thoughts and opinions that people have. And the question is this: should inheritances skip a generation? So instead of, when my parents die, leaving that money to my brothers and I, or based on how things have changed, should that money actually skip a generation and go to the grandkids? Um, so I also want to say that I know conversations around money can be triggering um, to many of us. And maybe we're going to say some things that might, I don't know, offend you, trigger you. It's not our intent, but as monsters of curiosity, to just explore the questions, explore the topics, but also explore, like, why do we have the reactions to things that we do? So
Mhm.
that's the disclaimer.
I
Um,
feel like we should add strobe lights and violence and smoking to this too, just like they do on TV.
oh,
Listener
okay. So
warnings. Yeah.
this idea came up to me because within the last couple of years, my dad passed away and there was some inheritance. And okay, so I'm currently 54 years old. So was this 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Let's just say that I was 51 years old. And luckily, like, I'm in a place where I feel like I'm pretty financially stable. We don't have any debt. We have our mortgage. Um, and we're sort of like that stage of life where you just feel kind of like we're set. And it's, of course, it's always nice to get money, but I was thinking about, what if there was a way for people to get their inheritance when they really needed it? And that could mean a lot of things, but
Mm.
what I was thinking of was when they're trying to buy a house, when they're maybe planning a wedding, where maybe they're having their first child, which is people in their 20s and 30s. So what if it skipped a generation and went to that younger generation to help them really get a foot in the door?
Mhm.
And we'll talk about, I've got all the numbers pulled up, but just, the cost of a house, and people are living longer. And when people are deciding to have kids is changing. It's not the same as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago. So I'd love to know your thoughts.
That
Susan?
is that is actually really cool. Why do I say that? A couple things came to mind when you said you can use this money for these situations, which is not it's like we can leave money in trust and you can get it for these 5 reasons, and that's it, which is a different way to do it because I've always thought, not as much anymore, but I shouldn't say I've always thought, grew up with the thought that if you get an inheritance or money or whatever it is, it's a no strings attached because I'm dead. It's like, what you do with the money is up to you. But more and more, it's been, you can have access to this money for these things, which is purse strings after, I'll control the purse strings after I die, if that will is solid and you don't contest it, kind of thing. But I think that's an interesting idea. One, here's what you can use it for. Skipping a generation, I don't have a generation below me. I have a niece and a nephew, and if I skipped them, they'd be upset. Let me put it that way. So Be like, "What the hell? We don't have kids yet." Um, so I look at it differently, but the idea of here's what you can use the money for, I don't want your, you know, if that had happened to me and something had happened, my crazy first boyfriend could have gotten money that was never, it's like I can see why you'd want to control certain things, but I like the idea of controlling it. In terms of skipping a generation, I think that becomes a real, what's the family dynamic? How much money do I have? It's die with zero kind of thing. But I do enjoy the, if I'm going to leave it, here's what you can use it for. That's really fascinating to me. And for a control freak, type A firstborn child, really intriguing. So Mm, that's what I think.
Oh,
What do you think,
mm,
Paul?
well, my first thought when this topic came up had to do a lot with generational wealth and transfer, and how that has substantially changed in our country in the last 40 years or so. And there used to be the concept of one generation would always do better than the previous generation for a number of reasons, whether that's, whatever metric you're looking at. I think we're kind of in a rarefied situation now where the generations that are following us are doing worse on
Mhm.
many metrics. They're not able to, as you said, purchase a house. They're not able to start a family when they wanted to start it. There's very different reasons that they have to do what they do because they're just not generationally improving. There's all kinds of reasons that that happened. I think mainly that's the and this is where some people might get triggered, and I don't want to turn it into political, but it seems that there's been a very different view of how wealth should be distributed in our country. And when we attack the institutions like unions that developed that middle class, that developed a situation where people could live longer with a pension, when we removed that ability to continue to grow that type of a monetary situation for folks' households, then we run into the situation where the generations stop doing as well because the people who used to be able to give money to their younger
Yeah.
generations are no longer have it because they have to keep it for themselves. Um, so I think we're kind of talking about, in reality, a rarefied situation where there is that ability to potentially skip the generation uh,
Mhm.
because that generation is doing better than the parents that are potentially going to give the inheritance to begin with now to their grandchildren. So I think that's a little bit unique. I think it's a creative solution to some of the ills that are happening now. And as you're saying, people are living longer. So maybe they do need to think through, do they need to spend it on their children, or is it better to be distributed to their grandchildren? I think that's a very interesting, provocative thought. But I can't help but think of how different it is now versus,
Mhm.
40, 50 years ago when there was
Yeah.
almost a guarantee that the next generation was going to do better, and they're not. So I don't want to discount the
Right.
fact that our world has changed, and in some viewpoints, not for the better.
And I would say too that it's not necessarily money that's the inheritance. It can be a house, it can be jewelry,
Well,
it can be clothes. It doesn't have to be money because I just did a quick search and it comes up according to the Federal Reserve, 1 in 5 families ever get a substantial gift of only 1 in 5 ever get anything.
yeah,
That's a substantial gift, so it's not common. It's not common the same way the death tax was a phrase that said, "Oh, the death tax." It's like that, to Paul's point, that was rarefied air. That never happened to any of us. That we'd never get that because we don't qualify at the levels that was hitting, and so I think it's like it says here, about 20% of US families ever get a financial inheritance or major gift, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a six-figure gift. It's,
right,
substantial,
Yeah.
$10,000. So that
right,
gives you an idea of how
yeah,
it's not just a financial thing, it can be, "Here's the silver from your grandmother" thing. It can be what and does that skip a generation? Because I think the generation that's growing up now, if I'm, looking at the kids today, it's very, uh they're very transient. I don't wanna carry that 2-ton box of silver from grandma with me, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's like, so what do they want if they want, and is this the generation to skip because the next generation may have less, so they will want something because they will need it to survive. I would like silverware, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, so I think
But
it's an interesting thought.
I mean, there's so many angles to this, and I mean,
mhm,
taking out, like, let's just take out the emotional angle of, like, who am I gonna leave this to and why? Am I gonna attach any purse strings? Okay, so I chose 2 dates in time as reference. So,
Mhm,
in 1950, the average age of death was 68 years old, and in 2020, that was up to 77 years, so an
wow,
increase of 11 years. Um, okay, in 1950, the median
just 9 years.
age of somebody having their first child was 22 years old.
mhm.
Zoinks, first of all. Um, in 2020, the first age of birth went up to 26 years old.
Mhm,
Um, and when you think about, okay, so people are living longer,
Mhm.
so they are gonna need more money for
yeah,
a longer period of time. But also by the time, like, your parents may be passing on, again, like, you're well into your adulthood, um, but, okay, if let's again use 1950, if they had a child at 22 years old, when that person dies, their child is 46 years old,
mhm.
but then the next generation, if and again, using, like, the average age of the first birth, is 24 years old.
Wow.
And then in 2020, when the parent dies, the kid is 51 years old, and the second generation is 25 years old. But here's, like, the big kicker. So, if in 1950, the median age of first birth was 22 years old. So let's just pretend
Mhm.
that you got married in 1948 and you bought your house in 1948. Guess how much the average price of a house was?
Oh, I don't
I
even wanna know.
it was
Just
probably like
guess.
1,000, like 2, $3,000 or
I'm
thir
gonna guess 40, 38,
no,
38,000.
it's really low, it's really low. It's gotta be like it's like 10 to 13 or something like that.
$5,250.
No.
Yes. Okay, now let's take the 2020, the median age of your first birth, and let's just say then you got married in 2018 and you bought your house. Okay, you probably didn't happen that way, but anyway, the price of a
Mhm.
house in 2018 is
Yep.
$305,000.
What were the what would that have been in 1950 dollars? I wonder.
I have no idea,
I don't know how to calculate that, but
but
yeah, yeah,
definitely
it's
more than
insane. It's an
5,000.
insane well, it's more than inflation. Let's just
Yeah,
put it that way. Even if you look at it any way you look at it, it's more than
yeah.
the inflation rate would have been.
Well,
It's insane, and how can somebody who's entry level position ever think about affording something like that?
mhm. Well, here's interesting, I don't know if this is true, this is from the University of Missouri, and not that I don't trust the University of Missouri, but this number is so low that it's sourced from the Federal Reserve. The median household income in 1950 was $3,000.
Wow.
That can't be right, I don't believe that. Today, it's
Well, if
68 that in 2020, it's just under 70.
well, I'm wondering if in 1948 there was only one person working.
Yeah.
Now you got
Oh,
2 people.
definitely, definitely. Well, think about when you're thinking of purchasing or housing, they do take your monthly income and then whatever
Multiply it by
percentage of that
yeah,
is how much you can spend on housing,
yeah.
according
Well,
to
Yeah.
the actual actuarial tables. But it's fascinating that 3 it does sort of make sense that incomes would be in the 3,000s
It would be 3 to 5 because your
if the
house is
yeah, if the house is
it's
5,
yeah, that
I
just
mean, that's incredible. I mean, that is incredible. It's fascinating that we're in this situation thinking in terms of what was,
mhm.
but then now we're in this what is that is some of the foundational things are different. Like you mentioned, Jen, about people are living longer. So they need to have money longer than they used to. The
Yeah,
actuary, I mean, think about how many people have stopped smoking because, that used to be what the actuaries would love is how many smokers they have because then they, you know, bring the population median age down. But now they're living longer. So you have to have a different plan. Um, that's kind of a weird thing for me to bring up, but in the context of an inherited generational wealth, I think your solution of skipping a generation is certainly somewhat viable. But then again, as Susan brought in with the control, um, do people make the best decisions when they get that access in their 20s? So doesn't it make sense to put some strings on it? Regardless of the situation, whether, they're buying a house or whatever,
mhm.
should there be other should there be other strings on?
Mm.
Talk about rarefied, I mean, this is a really weird topic, but, apparently Diana, Princess of Wales, when upon her passing, her estate went to William and Harry, of course, but they had it in trust as, I think you alluded
Mhm.
to something, Susan, and they couldn't touch any of it until 30, till they were 30.
30, I think it's yeah,
So
30 is a
so they
common
had
number
they
for
had to get through those, crazy 20s in order to
well, they
be
had to
viewed
get a
as making better decisions.
fully developed prefrontal cortex.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I guess, but I mean, it is some people will make better decisions at that point and some people
Yeah.
won't. But bottom line is that there was an attempt to put it into put it out of reach until you could make
Safety.
better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're skipping generations, yeah. I think another concept we should talk about or think about, because this came to mind as I was thinking about the topic. Um, is an inheritance even owed?
I
Should
say
people even
no.
No.
get an
No.
inheritance?
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things of like, okay, I think of my parents and I always encouraged them to spend every dime they made because I didn't think
Yeah.
it was, don't sacrifice your lifestyle in your as you age to leave something behind. You've got a legacy without the money. So, I mean, I just think of it as like, should everyone get an inheritance if
Mhm.
that's a real concept. I think there are some folks that feel entitled. I mean, who doesn't want that? But I don't know. Is that skipping a generation, making that point to your kids that this isn't for you. This is for your kids.
Yeah.
Mm.
The family dynamics when you skip somebody, I'm resentful, I'm angry, I'm gonna challenge the will because I needed the money because 'cause I've been gambling, it's every
Well,
television show you've ever seen. I mean, it's, but I think which is my favorite thing about television shows because 'cause I'm like, the other 98% of us don't live like that at all, but it's like, "Well, leave me your money." But I think it also brings up a value of if you have a lot of money because I read that I think it was Bill Gates, it's like everybody's trying to give it away because it is so much money that you don't really have to live and, or do anything. You have no responsibility to make money if you have that much, and they're telling their kids, "We don't want you to grow up like that. You have to have some sense of responsibility because they always say that that first generation that makes that much money, they have the issues and the problems, and it's their kids that see this caused a problem, so I don't want that money. Is this it's I don't know that. I know that from television documentaries, so I don't know if that's a fact or not. But I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, is that inheritance meant to help? And if it is, when is it helpful to receive it? And that goes back to, I'm gonna dictate the 3 life episodes that I think it would be helpful to receive it. The mob kidnapping you is not one of them that would come up. So you won't have access and you're gonna have to figure that out yourself. But I mean,
Yeah.
when is it most useful? Like, it would be like a wedding or a vacation every year. It's like, how do you want to have somebody use that money is a real interesting concept.
I
Well, I
Or
think this concept
that's oh, go ahead, Jen,
oh,
sorry.
okay, so in my mind, like, I feel like this concept only works if, like, everybody moves to that model because there is gonna be one generation that's like, "Hey, I just got skipped here." But if just depending on how longevity continues to play out, how cost of living continues to play out, it might be a better long-term strategy for creating generational wealth. And again, I know that generational wealth is a luxury that a lot of people don't have. Um, and I'm also assuming that when people get money, they're thinking about how do I set myself up for a future that is more financially secure. So instead of saying, yeah, I'm going to buy that really great car, saying, like, this is my one opportunity to have something
Mhm.
close to a down payment on a house. I will never
Right.
have a windfall like this. I cannot afford a down payment on a house, which most people can't. And so
Mhm.
Right.
you are forever locked out of being a homeowner. The
Yeah.
only way that a lot of this younger generation is ever going to own a house is if they somehow
Yeah.
luck into a lump sum that's gonna help them with a down payment, and maybe
Mhm.
even then it's still
Mhm.
not gonna be possible.
Right, right.
Mhm.
But to your point, Susan, like, you could have a house that you inherit, but by the time you inherit that house, you're in your 50s. Well, where have you been
Yeah,
living up until that point?
up
But if
until
you
that point.
inherit a house when you are 25 years old, that is a different financial
Yep,
future.
yep, absolutely.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, what comes to mind are the fires in LA, because some of the
Mhm,
households that burnt in some of the more or less than affluent areas were generational houses where
mhm,
2, 3 generations would live, and they were owned by the eldest generation, but it was supplying housing for the next 2, and once the house was burnt down, then suddenly there's 3 generations that are homeless, and
mhm,
Mm,
talk about that was the vehicle for which they were transferring whatever value they had as a family to one another. They always had a roof over their head.
mhm.
So, you look at that, then they were, in a sense, skipping a generation. They were actually
Yeah,
spreading across 2 generations instead of 1.
yeah.
But, um, it just shows that there's many, many different ways that people are navigating this, particularly when they're living in high cost areas, that do impact how they're going to, um their lifestyle that they live, and what the generational interdependence is. So, I mean, that it's this is a fascinating topic because that concept of wealth when it comes to generations isn't always what you would consider ultra wealthy by any stretch, but there's a huge amount of money that is tied up in real assets versus
mhm.
liquid, and,
Liquid,
when
yeah.
you try to liquidate the asset, then you end up with a completely different,
Mm.
Yep.
outcome, and a different set of values too, because roof over your head is one basic need, and that doesn't always translate to an inheritance that has
Mhm.
has a, um, liquid fund behind it, but it has a great value to a lot of people.
I mean, and that's interesting. You could bring up a great point, Paul, of just like how our values are shifting. Of I don't know, like America, I think is just known for like independence, and you should move out of your parents' house as soon as possible, and you should be independent. And you shouldn't have to rely on them. Where in a lot of countries, you don't move out until you get married, and then maybe
Mhm.
you even move in. Of like that is a form of inheritance. That is a form of
Yeah.
passing on generational wealth that is not often practiced in the US. I mean, it is,
It
but
is,
maybe that's
but
gonna have to be more common.
Yeah.
well, I think of even in my own household, Peter, my husband, grew up in a three generational household. He lived with his mom most of his life, but then they moved in following her divorce in with her parents, and the three generations lived together for a very long time. And that is just how things unfolded for them. Um, in contrast to me, I lived with three other siblings with my parents, and as soon as I could get the hell out, I got out because I had no interest in being there. So it was, you're right. There are so many different pathways that people go that seem un-American or Western or whatever you want to put it. They just don't seem like the norm, but it is quite frequent that there's a lot of people who do experience a different way of living.
Mhm.
I
And
Yeah.
then, some flight back and forth, flip back and forth. If they're in school, they come back and spend the summers at home or
Mhm.
whatever as they're transitioning into their adulthood. So, and some people's adulthood starts when they're 17 and some start when they're 34, you know, based on what they view as that definition of adulthood when they don't live on
Mhm.
its roof. So that's there's all kinds of different ways this could pan out.
I would say usually in America, we are the odd one out of how people handle inheritance and family stability slash continuity. Um, I think we're the ones that go money, 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 and house, 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 and other people are like, to your point, Paul, earlier, this is a multi-generational, and we are going to keep what is important to us in the family for continuity purposes, and that is the goal, which is
Mhm.
so I think every time I think this is how it's done, I always do a quick search. It's like, no, that's how it's done in America, almost nowhere else. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
I always think it's a everyone else has a better idea of how to share equity in the family for sustainable reasons of that family line and the stability of it, much more than Americans who make it about who got more when.
right.
Almost all the time. It's like, "I deserved more, and I'm gonna go to court, and I'm angry." All valid from different points of view, so I'm not arguing or suggesting that's wrong. It's just how we do it is seems different from others a lot of the time
Well, going back to
because 'cause we're weird.
values, like, I think how, especially in the US, success is defined as living independently, leaving the house, and if
Mhm,
you have to live with your parents, sort of like sometimes that connotation is like, "Oh, you're living in your mom's basement?" Like,
mhm.
to your point,
Well, it's
Paul, like
certainly a subplot within a lot of sitcoms these days, we'll put
yeah,
it that
totally.
way.
But that is such a powerful way of creating and passing on generational assets and being
Mhm,
able to, uh,
Mm,
do more and not have to have so much of your income all going to housing for just you.
mhm. Yeah, true.
mm, yep,
I think this whole thing about how you're gonna make it to your 70s, 80s, or even 90s, because 'cause we're all living longer, and that whole "how long can you live?" which I don't have a fascination with that question at all. I find that horrifying. I don't think my body's gonna make it till tomorrow at the rate I'm going, so making it go for another 35 years is ugh. But I was talking with somebody, and it was about how much is it gonna cost me to live, if I hit 89, 90, 91 kind of thing, he said the elder care is going to be crazy and then I thought it's just me and then my husband. So no one's going to come and see us. So you just start going, oh dear God, what's going to happen? And this guy goes, oh no, it's going to be a lot of robotics by that point because we're already testing things. So you will probably have a robot or some sort of AI or machine getting your pills. The floor will be geared for if you fall, it will know it and it will alert somebody. All of these things. And they said, because it's robotic and not people, it won't cost as much. And I thought, I don't know if that's true or not, but I will feel good about that for the next 4 days. So, I mean, yeah. But I thought it was really interesting. It's like the fall detection, maybe even and we already do it with AI and Alexa. I'm asking questions. I'm having a conversation with a robot, with AI to get this. And they said, so the companionship that we don't think we have, we're already training ourselves for because we
I think
talked to
that's a
Alexa.
I I'm definitely a technologist and who I believe that's the future we see, Susan, but I
Mhm.
really truly believe we're gonna be in a different state of need for human human companionship as well. I think we're gonna see a lot of, um, offers for or opportunities for that kind of a life where we
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to, the aging in place concept. But I think that's gonna lead to some crazy making and people going nuts and doing crazy shit because
Yeah.
we
I'm
need
already
people.
thinking
We're
of
we're
jacked
humans
up
needing.
sex dolls because these things already
Oh,
exist.
yes. Yes, but apparently, as you get older, that drive decreases, but I don't know, you know, now that we're doing some.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you can just mod out one of these sex dolls just for more like it can pick you up off the floor when you fall, or it can wipe
Can
your
it
butt, or
Oh
whatever.
god,
can it wash my windows? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
more
funny. That
more
is
helpful to
funny.
me at a certain point, but I think you're right, I mean, but come on, Jen, all the major breakthroughs in technology always bring up sex in some way. I mean, come on.
It's what
Well,
drives
isn't it
human behavior.
yeah,
Yeah.
isn't some of the stuff on the internet was discovered because, something dot XXX went, "You know how we can do this faster, stronger,
Oh, yeah,
better, whatever."
porn's
It's
been a
because the
huge
sex
driver.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Porn's been
exactly.
a huge driver for a lot of internet capacities that we
Yeah,
enjoy for other non, porn
So
reasons,
you're
yep.
non-sex industry
saying we should
things.
really put the porn industry on this? That it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
their
well,
assignment?
Oh, yeah.
I
We
think
should
we
yeah.
should just get a support or not a focus group of sex workers, and I'm sure you got all the answers you need for everything with
Yes.
this. Everything.
Call 1-800 call 24/7 for a fall, for a this, for a that. Yeah, they already
Yeah.
got 24 hours a day covered. So I
Yeah,
think it's just
they know how to
how do we
manage that.
take that and put it to elder care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
do
like
kind I Susan, I do, sorry to take this into a different realm, but I do love the idea of a fall monitor. And I think there are already listening devices for that type of when monitoring system that if they do hear some types of
yeah.
noises, they will definitely trigger something. I don't know whether that's the grunt, the groan, the bone crack, or what, but
Mhm.
The really
it's already
loud,
happening.
expletive.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get 3 fucks in a row, then again and again, that means they've fallen. And they'll
Yep.
be personalized to me because that's what I would do. I'd be swearing, "God da Jesus."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
like
don't
and then a scream. It's like, "Yeah, yeah,
I
she's
don't think
fallen."
we're gonna hear the classic, "I've fallen and I can't get up." I don't think
No,
we're gonna hear that. I don't think
no.
that's what real life brings us. But, no, those
It's been
and
quiet in there for 8 hours. I think she's gone. Yeah. It's like it's
not even just laying there waiting for someone to help. They're
exactly.
gone. They're just gone.
She's
Like,
been at the bottom
just
of the
go
stairs
we're
for
gonna immediately gonna go to gone.
yeah,
Okay.
we're not helping.
Yeah.
Been too quiet for too long.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
Oh,
be interested to hear people's comments and thoughts on this, and I'm sure there'll be a lot, and I'm sure I probably put my foot in my mouth 18 different ways in talking about this. But
To a certain
this is
extent,
just
we all
a super interesting conversation because it's man,
mhm.
there's just so many different angles and ways to think about this and do it. And, I'm just thinking about the tacticalness of this. But Susan, to your point, it becomes so emotional. And then especially when you have like siblings and other members of the family that think it should happen this way and it's going to happen this
Mhm.
other way. But um, I'm curious. I'm going to do a little bit of research. Like, was there a point in time where an inheritance was more expected and was more common? Because I do think our generation, at least, all three of us were like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm not expecting anything." And like you,
No.
Paul, I was like, "Please spend your
Mhm.
money. Please spend your money." And I've even told Bella, "If I do this right, I'm dying with $0, just so you
Oh,
know."
exactly.
So
Yeah.
you got to make sure you got a plan in place.
Yeah, well, I think that's also early expectations.
Yeah.
Setting those expectations earlier than not. Um, because I do think that there are some family units that are very much saying, "Well, you'll get that in your inheritance," or "That's your
Yeah.
inheritance," or,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, "You'll get that when I'm done with it." That kind of stuff, which is I think that's just sort of setting up for disappointment overall. But, there are people who do live by that. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and
we
I
wouldn't
think
we wouldn't have your procedural, shows, Susan, if there weren't people who did that
Mhm.
'cause,
I know. Ask me about any of them, and I can tell you what it is, yeah.
yeah.
I think it's because I do think it would be interesting for people to say, "Here's how I do it from my point of view, from my family, from my culture, from my part of the world," because I do think what we're talking about is a very American idea of independence, get out of the house, separate households for all different members of your family. That whole thing is very much a divide this between this. Is it equal? Is it not? Everything that comes with that. It seems very American versus other cultures. So it would be interesting to hear from other people say, this is how we do it. You might want
Mhm.
to consider it America because you're
Yeah.
failing
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
It's like different ways to do it. And also my grandparents, when they passed, it was the both sides of the family were different. Some was a little bit of here's what's left over. And then the other side was, what do you want that we own? Do you want this dresser? And so inheritance for both sides of the family was very different.
Mhm.
I think it just depends on what what is precious to you. What do you want to give to somebody else? And that can be anything. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think money is the answer. I think it's the things I cherish from my grandparents are about two or three things, but I look at it as like that's what I remember from my childhood with you. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want that thing that evokes the memory is the inheritance.
I have a story that's the opposite of this. My grandma had a spinning wheel, and when I was a kid, I thought that was the coolest, greatest thing ever, and so my grandma said, "Okay, when I die, you get this spinning wheel." So when she died, my mom was like, "Here's the spinning wheel," and I was like, "I don't have room for that. You hang on to that." And, like, my fascination with the spinning wheel was long gone. Fast forward, my mom's always trying to unload this spinning wheel on me, and I'm like, "I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it." So, my cousin, same grandma, I was like, "Would you like this?" And she's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Yes!" Y'all, my mom, she hasn't been that pissed off at me, and I don't know how long. She was so mad, and I said, "Mom, that was my inheritance to do with what I saw fit to do." And boy, she
Right.
did not agree with me. She was so mad. So sorry, just of like the things that you're like,
Interesting.
"Oh, I can't wait to get that." And I'm like, "Would this freaking spinning wheel stop
Yeah.
following me around? I don't want it." I
I think
was
there's a song
4
about
when I
that.
said I wanted that.
Well, yeah, we were different people, weren't we? I mean, and our needs change. Needs definitely
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
I have this whole kind of Disney-esque thing going on in my head where, Jen, you're walking along and you turn around and the spinning wheel stops and just freezes in place, and then you keep walking and the little legs of the spinning wheel keep going forward. You turn
It's
around,
following
freezes
you.
in place. Yeah. Not following you.
Just don't touch that one thing
That
because
don't
isn't
touch
that
that spindle.
Yeah.
yeah, don't touch that because you know what happens with that. Then you have to have somebody kiss you to get you to wake up.
Yeah.
A lot of community issues that go on after that finger
Yep.
goes. Yeah.
Mm. Well, on that
Changes.
note, I think this is a good place for us to end.
Probably when we start talking Disney, yeah, it's time.
Oh my god. Oh, well, that was good.
Uh,
That was a really good discussion.
Yeah,
that was a
I'm
fun
looking
topic.
forward to hearing, people's thoughts on this. Lots to learn.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
curious, very curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Educate us. Expound.
and
Yeah.
that's your
Alright,
Monsters of Curiosity today.
Woohoo.
see you next week.
Before you go, a friendly reminder that the people on this podcast are curious, not certified. Nothing you just heard is professional legal, financial, or business advice. It was a conversation, a good one, but still just a conversation. And if something they said makes you want to rethink your entire business model, maybe you should sleep on it first and then call someone with a license. The hosts bring the ideas and you bring the judgment. And if it all works out, they'd love to hear about it. If it doesn't, well, then they've never met you. All content is copyright Monsters of Curiosity and may not be reproduced or distributed without permission.